Good morning and welcome to Mindshare 2015 and welcome to my presentation. Well, the first presentation of such an event usually starts with greetings, but not this presentation. I'm going to start with congratulations. My congratulations go to a character string, to the character string 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, now you might ask, why do I congratulate a character string? It's because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the most popular password of the year 2014. And that's according to a survey made in the USA. 6 out of 1,000 passwords turned out to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which means if you collect, let's say, 1,000 Google email addresses in the internet, you automatically have 6 passwords guessed, and you can hack 6 Google accounts without having any hacker expertise, and I think that's quite something. My next congratulations go to the character string. That's the way I like it, baby. I don't want to live forever. Well, you might wonder what this is. It's the longest password that was guessed in a password guessing competition that took place here in Germany. And the bad news is, even if you have a 43-character password, you still can't be sure that it is really secure. Well, let's look at the next one. The next congratulations go to K3 & $D plus D. Guess what this is? Well, it's the shortest password not guessed in the same competition. And the good news is you only need 7 characters in order to get a good password. Well, you should have at least 10 of them for 10 different applications, and you should change them like 5 times a year. So it's not that easy to remember, but at least it's secure. And now let's look at the biggest password theft of the year. This award goes to a group of Russian hackers, but actually there was more than only this hack. Let's start with the third biggest hack that took place in the last 18 months. There was one discovered by the BSI in January 2014, and in this case 16 million passwords were stolen. There was another similar case. In this case 21 million passwords were stolen. And then there was this Russian hacker group who also stole passwords, and in this case, well, I hope you have a little time. In this case, 1.2 billion passwords were stolen by one single hacker group. And this means that a significant part of the world's population was affected by this password theft. And I think after all these cases where passwords were stolen or guessed or whatsoever, it's justified to say we need a replacement for passwords. For example, we can use smart cards, we can use USB tokens, we can use chip watches, we can use proximity tokens, but in all cases it's a combination of knowledge, like a PIN or a password, and possession. That's usually considered the best way of authentication and the most secure way of authentication, and it's certainly one of the major goals in IT security to establish this token or smart card based authentication on the internet or in the IT world. And if we now look at the most technical development in recent time, we might say that replacing password is the most important task we currently have in IT security. But in fact, we here at CryptoVision, we don't think so, because replacing passwords is only a part of the story. In fact, we need an evolution from network access control to document protection, or to say it in an easier way. Replacing passwords is not enough. There are many other things we need to care about. And in my presentation, I will tell you a few examples. For example, you will see what I mean if we look at the crypto innovation of the year. Well, at first I thought our product, CryptoVision ePasslet Sampler, is the innovation of the year because it's a really great product, and my colleagues will be welcome to explain you what exactly it does. It's a great tool for creating sample cards in EID projects, really great. But finally I realized that it was not the CryptoVision, not the crypto innovation of the year, because we were beaten. We were beaten by the front door on the backside concept, and this was developed by the NSA. Sorry, so the NSA beat us. Well, I can explain you what I'm talking about. The NSA always wanted backdoors in crypto products. So it came quite to a surprise that a few months ago, NSA Director Michael Rogers said, "We don't want backdoors." What a surprise. He said, "We don't want backdoors, we want to use the front door." So now, of course, this immediately causes a philosophical question. What is the difference between a backdoor and a front door on the backside? Well, in our view, there is not really a difference. It's just a new name for an old concept, so not much has changed. Or to say it a little different, it's old wine in new wineskins. And basically it says the NSA still wants to have backdoors in crypto products, and this means that people on a party still ask me, can I avoid backdoors and backside front doors in crypto products? And my answer is always, yes, you can. You just have to use CryptoVision products. We produce crypto solutions since 1999, and I promise you we have no backdoor for the NSA and no front door, and on the backside we are just 100% secure. And the moral of the story is, replacing passwords is not enough. We also need to avoid backdoors. Okay, so let's now look at the crypto application of the year. And again, I thought, well, the crypto application of the year is of course our new product, CryptoVision ePasslet Sampler, because it's really great, and as I said, my colleagues will tell you all about it. But again, we were beaten. This time we were beaten by themed crypto ransomware. Well, you probably know ransomware. Well, if you don't know it, you will immediately learn what it is as soon as you get a display like this on your screen. So it's a kind of malware. It says your computer has been locked and you have to pay, let's say, $400, otherwise you will never get back to your computer desktop again. And then you have to pay, and as far as I know, it even works some of the time. So if you pay, you get your computer unlocked. But of course, that's not the real solution. There are also German ransomwares. Well, or I don't know if this can be really considered German. Es ist die ungesetzliche Tätigkeit enthüllt, but it's supposed to be German. And again, you have to pay to get access again to your PC. And as you see here, even the NSA produces ransomware. Probably it's a new kind of fundraising they use, or at least that's the impression you get when you look at this display. Now the question is, what is crypto ransomware? Crypto ransomware is a special case of ransomware which looks like this. This means a crypto ransomware encrypts all your files, or at least all the important ones, and then it says you have to pay in order to get the key to decrypt your files again. Otherwise, everything is lost. And again, the price is usually about $300 or $400, and again, it usually works. So you have a good chance, if you pay, you will get the key, and then you will get access again to your data. And now the innovation of the year, in my view, is the so-called themed crypto ransomware. Well, I can tell you what this is. If you get a display like this, you know that you have a themed crypto ransomware. This one is themed according to Los Pollos Hermanos, but well, basically the problem is the same. Again, you have to pay to get the key for your data, But at least in this case you have a nice logo, so you get a little more for the money you spend. And does anybody know where this comes from? Los Pollos Hermanos is a fast food chain in the USA, but it's not a real one, it's fictitious. Yes?
It's from Breaking Bad.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
It's a fictitious fast food chain in the TV series Breaking Bad, which means that this is a true cryptologic innovation. It's not only a crypto ransomware, it also has a relation to a very popular TV series. And I have to admit that this again has beaten us with our really great products, but this one is even more notable. The Breaking Bad ransomware, well, I would say it's not as good as CryptoVision's products, but it has a very successful sales strategy. So maybe this should be something we should change in the near future. We will see. So the moral of the story is replacing passwords is not enough. We also need malware protection. Okay, let's now come to something different. The loser of the year. Well, guess who was the loser of the year? You won't believe it, it's the NSA. Why is the NSA the loser of the year? Well, because the AFJX of the NSA has dropped within 1 year. The AFJX is the April Fool's Joke Index, or as we say in Germany, Aprilscherz-Index. The concept behind it is the more April Fool's jokes are made about you, the more relevant you are. And if we look at the year 2014, we see that the NSA was very relevant because I found 8 April Fool's jokes relating to the NSA on the internet, and this clearly set the record. So that the NSA in 2014 was the most relevant thing in existence. Well, I can give you an example. For example, there was one April Fool's joke relating to Keith Alexander, the then director of the NSA. On the 1st of April in 2014, Teletrust, the German crypto industry consortium, published a press release, and they said that the Alexanderplatz in Berlin was going to be renamed to Keith Alexanderplatz. Why? Because it's named for Keith Alexander, the then director of the NSA. And there was even a reason that was given: due to his outstanding services in raising public awareness of IT security in Germany. Well, it's a joke, but it sounds pretty real, I think. And it was one of 8 April Fool's jokes published about the NSA in 2014. And guess what happened this year, on the 1st of April 2015? Well, not much happened. Only 2 April Fool's jokes were published about the NSA. So the NSA lost about 3/4 of their relevance value, and this was clearly a loss for the NSA. And the moral of the story is replacing passwords is not enough. We also have to lower the relevance of secret services. And I can promise you, here at CryptoVision, we do our best in order to achieve this. And our products are so secure that we expect that the secret services will lose all of their relevance if all people in the world start to use our products. Now let's get to the vacation trip of the year. Well, the vacation trip of the year, at least for me, was my own vacation trip to the NSA. Believe it or not, but in March I spent a few days at the NSA headquarters in near Washington, DC, in Fort Meade. And well, it's not a joke. And this was my travel outfit. I thought I might dress exactly like the NSA people, so I think it looks quite good. Well, this is a joke, but the next one is not a joke, because I really took pictures of the NSA headquarters near Washington. I took them from the car. Here's another one. And it's pretty easily possible to take pictures of the NSA building because it's pretty close to the street, and it's pretty close to the downtown area or the metropolitan area of Washington. so it's not too difficult to take pictures. It's not allowed, but from the car you usually can do it. And there's even a museum next to the NSA site, and this museum is open for the public, so the NSA really operates an NSA museum. And of course I went there. There you can see things like Enigma encryption machines, or here's a person repairing them. And there's also a cryptologic Hall of Honor with the most famous cryptologists of history. But the most important part of the NSA museum is the gift shop, because there you can buy, for example, NSA sweatshirts, and you can also buy NSA teddy bears, and you can even buy NSA bibs for the children. And guess what else is available? Excuse me? Well, in the NSA gift shop, you can even buy mugs. There's quite a variety, different motifs. And my favorite NSA mug is this one. It has an encrypted inscription. And if we look at it in more detail, you will see, or well, if you know a little bit about cryptology, you will immediately recognize that this is a so-called pigpen cipher. It's described in many crypto books. I guess you see how it works. Just take a letter from the table, and for example, A is like a mirror L, or the C looks like an L, and BL looks like an L with a dot. So quite easy to solve. So was no real problem to determine the clear text, and it turned out to be National Security Agency. Well, you won't believe it, but there's a mistake in the clear text. It means the NSA made a mistake in their encryption technology that has never before happened in history, or at least nobody has noticed. So I really can't tell you how proud I am that I found out this NSA encryption bug. And well, I almost became famous in the crypto scene because I was the first one in history who discovered an NSA encryption bug, the so-called MAC bug, how it is now called in the crypto history books. And it made me even so famous that I became the hero of a cartoon adventure. And when I tell people I was the one who found a flaw in an NSA encryption system, people always say that's absolutely unbelievable, and of course it is unbelievable. And guess what happened in the crypto museum? The Cryptologic Hall of Honor was extended, and I became part of it. So believe it or not, but this was really one of the major achievements in my professional life. But in fact, the MAC bug, of course, was not the only bug that was discovered in crypto implementations. There was also the Heartbleed bug in the OpenSSL software. There was the Frake bug in the TLS protocol. There was the logjam bug in the TLS protocol. The problem is always the same. Even the best crypto implementation may be worthless if there's a mistake in the implementation. And the moral of the story is replacing passwords is not enough. We also have to avoid bugs in crypto implementations. Now let's look at the death of the year. The most notable person who has died in the last 12 months, in my opinion, was John Anthony Walker. Does anybody know John Anthony Walker? Well, John Anthony Walker, he died in 2014, on August 28, born 1937. He was one of the most important spies of the 20th century. And now you might ask, well, what kind of spy was he, or what kind of person? Well, was he a real James Bond? No, not at all. Was he a high-ranked officer in the USA who became a traitor and sold his information to the Soviet Union? No, he was not high-ranked at all. He simply was a cipher clerk with a 20,000 $20,000 income per year, a really unimportant person like thousands of others in the US Army, but still he was a quite important spy. He operated an encryption machine, KL7, which worked a little bit like the Enigma, and the keys used for these encryption machines were punch cards. The key cards looked like this, and what he did, he simply sold these key cards to the Soviet Union. Thousands of them, it lasted 15 or 20 years, and he received about $1 million as a revenue or as a payment for his service, but finally he was arrested in 1985, and he was sentenced to life in prison, but he died after 29 years in prison last year. And well, the interesting thing about this is that, like the New York Times said, it's been estimated that Mr. Walker provided enough code data information to alter significantly the balance of power between Russia and the United States. And now, of course, the interesting question is, how is this possible? How can an ordinary, average cipher clerk with a $20,000 income per year, how can he provide so much information to the enemy that this would even decide a nuclear war? Something like this simply may not be possible in a well-organized army. But the US Navy, they made a serious mistake. They used the same key cards almost everywhere. That means when John Anthony Walker sold these key cards, the Russians could listen to almost everything, to almost every communication on every US ship in every corner of the world. It was a complete disaster because of a very bad key management. And the moral of the story is, replacing passwords is not enough. We also need appropriate key management. Let's now get to another topic. Many of you will know that I'm pretty much interested in the history of cryptology, and now I want to introduce to you the newly discovered cryptologic mystery of the year, the so-called DeBosnis cryptograms. Well, to explain this story, we need to go back a little bit in the year 1882. In this year, a man named Henry DeBosnis came to Essex County in New York as a stranger. He immediately started courting a widow named Betsy Wells, and it lasted only a few weeks. Then they married, but the marriage didn't last very long. Then Betsy Wells was found dead. She was murdered, shot, her throat was cut, and of course the suspicion immediately fell to her husband. Her husband was arrested, put into jail, and in jail he started writing poems, he painted pictures, and he created a number of encrypted messages. Later in court, he denied everything. He said he had got nothing to do with the murder of his wife, but the judge didn't believe him, and finally in 1883, Henry DeBosnis was hanged. Well, now there are a few interesting questions about this case. First of all, was he really guilty? Probably he was, so all the evidence is consistent with him being guilty, but in my view, it's not absolutely convincing, so there's still some doubt. Did he murder his first wives too? Well, he had two earlier wives, and they also died pretty young. Maybe they were murdered too, and finally, who was he anyway? Because he said himself on court that Henry DeBosnis was not his real identity, but his real identity, if there was another one, was never clear, or absolutely unclear what happened. So maybe some of these questions could be answered if we could decrypt his encrypted messages, but so far this has not happened. These messages only came to public attention like a year ago or so, so far not many cryptologists have examined them, so there's still a good chance that we can solve them, and maybe we will learn more about this very strange person who died 130 years ago. Or let's look at another newly discovered cryptologic mystery, the Scilab cryptogram. Well, Sylob is a British rock musician, certainly not the most famous one, but he published a few records or CDs. And in 1995, he acquired a book in a London second-hand bookstore. And this is the title page of the book. He published it last year on his blog, so it's also quite new mystery. Well, I can show you the whole book because it's pretty short. These are pages 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, they all look the same. All these rectangles, 7, 8. Well, 9, 10 doesn't look different either. And that's it. That's the last page. The whole book contains no letters, no numbers, no information. It contains just nothing except for these symbols. And the whole purpose of this book and the content are completely unknown. And this is a newly discovered crypto mystery. If you have an idea what all this might mean, I would be very interested, and many others would be interested too, but so far nobody has come up with a really plausible solution. Let's see what happens. And now I have talked about two unsolved crypto mysteries that were recently discovered. Now I will explain you a solved cryptologic mystery, one that has been 88 years old, that was solved last year, the so-called action line cryptogram. Well, we have to go back to the year 1926. In 1926, a man named Emil Snyder died in Detroit, and his son found in his possession a leather-bound booklet, which looked like this, pretty small one, and it had only 9 pages. Well, this is the first page, and again, I can show you the whole book because it's pretty short. But even on the first page, you see that this is some kind of encrypted text, or at least it's not readable. There must be something behind it, or there must be some way to how it can be decrypted. And the other pages look pretty much the same. And that's it. These are the 9 pages of the booklet, and all the pages look pretty much the same, and it's not readable. It must be some kind of encryption. Well, again, in 1926, the content and the purpose were completely unknown of this book. Then it lasted a few decades. Then the scientific magazine Cryptologia published an article about it and asked their readers, does anybody know the solution or the purpose of this booklet? But there never was a reply. 2 years ago, I read this article in an old Cryptologia issue, and well, at least one thing came to my mind. Well, there's an FY here at the end of this page, and of course, I asked myself, what does FY mean? Well, it could be for you, or fiscal year, or 5 Yardbirds, or forever young, or whatsoever. But well, basically, I could draw one conclusion. Every letter in this book is a word initial. But why would anybody possess a book that only contains word initials? I had no idea, and obviously nobody else had. I published an article about this booklet on my blog, about the action line cryptogram, how it was called. And then I got an interesting reply. A man named Armin Kraus said, well, this looks like a Freemason memorandum. But of course I knew the Freemasons, but I had no idea what a memorandum is. But I checked it on the internet, and as it seems, as it turned out, the action line cryptogram looks pretty much the same, because this is a Freemason memorandum. It's a description of Freemason rituals, and it's abbreviated. So as a kind of encryption, only the first letters of each word are noted, and this seemed to be pretty close. Well, here's another example. But then there was another mail from a reader, and he said, well, it might be not a Freemason memorandum, but an Oddfellows memorandum. Well, I had never heard of the Oddfellows, but I checked that, and there's actually an organization named the Independent Order of the Oddfellows. Never had heard of them, but they exist. And then a British code expert told me, well, in the British Oddfellows community, a few more copies of this booklet are circulating, and you can see here a few of them. So we were pretty close to the solution, and finally Nick Pelling told me, well, I have found a book. It has the name Esoteric, and this book is the solution, because if you look at the starting letters, they match in almost every case with the action line cryptogram. And this is an Oddfellow book about Oddfellow rituals, and this means it was the solution. So the action line cryptogram turned out to be an Oddfellow ritual description in an abbreviated form. It took us 88 years to find this out. Yes, so if you read through this book, it's not too interesting. This paragraph is about using your hands for a certain Oddfellows ritual. Not very interesting, but at least you can read it now. And now you might ask, what does FY mean? Finally, I can tell you, it means for you. And well, if you have expected something else, I have to disappoint you. So, the moral of this story is replacing passwords is not enough. We also need to understand what FY means in all of its different meanings. Okay, now let's look at the loss of the year. Well, you will be surprised, but for me the loss of the year was the TV show Wetten, dass. Well, everybody in Germany knows Wetten, dass. It was a very famous TV show, but it was cancelled last year in fall. And this was a loss for me. Why? Well, with the finishing of Wetten, dass, my favorite crypto stunt has become obsolete. Well, what is my favorite crypto stunt? I will tell you. We just have to imagine the situation that during Wetten, dass, there's the show host, Markus Lanz, and a candidate, and now everybody waits for an interesting bet, and what happens? The candidate says, I'd like to greet my grandma, and my grandpa, and my mother, and my dog, and of course, this is always very boring, because if you watch Wetten, dass, you don't want to hear greetings to your grandma or things like that. And it's not necessary, because this problem can also be solved on a cryptologic way. I will show you how this works. Let us assume that I bet that I can juggle with 3 balls for 30 seconds without dropping a ball. Well, not a very spectacular bet, but it will do for the explanation. And now let's assume I want to express my greetings to CryptoVision in Gelsenkirchen. Well, everybody here at CryptoVision will understand CE and GE, so it's enough to transmit 4 letters. And what I need to do is to convert these 4 letters into a series of zeros and ones, which is pretty simple for a computer scientist. You can use something like the ASCII code. And now you need a juggle code. I usually make it this way. So if I use a ball like this, on the outside it's a 1, and if I throw it on the inside, it's a 0. So if I want to transmit the message I've shown you, it would be like this. And now let's try it. Das Kopf, die Wette gilt. 1 0 0 1 0 0 0 1 1 1 0 1 0 0 0 1 0. It means I have won the bet, and I have sent all my greetings, and it was boring. It was not boring for the audience, so it was a perfect crypto stunt. But it has become obsolete because this show doesn't exist anymore. So the moral of the story is replacing passwords is not enough. I also have to think of a new crypto stunt. Okay, I'm almost done now. Let's look at the last certificate I will issue. It's for the phenomenon of the year. Well, the phenomenon of the year, in my view, is the so-called dancing pig phenomenon. Just imagine you're in your office and you start your computer, and then you see a window popping up that was prepared by your administrator, and this window looks like this. That means you have the choice between important security information and a dancing pig animation. What would you choose? Yes, of course you would choose the important security information. I knew that you were saying that. The important security information is replacing passwords is not enough. We also have to care about user awareness. Well, because the real problem is, in reality, the users don't click on the security information, they click on the dancing pigs, because dancing pigs are more interesting than security, and security is always boring for the users. And it should be clear that if users don't use or if they don't live security, many of the security mechanisms or of the crypto mechanisms don't work. So that means, and that's probably the last message of my talk today, user awareness is an important goal to achieve in IT security. Otherwise, it won't work. And now let's get back to this window. And I know deep in your heart, you prefer the dancing pig animation and not the security information. And here it is. Okay, so thank you and have fun at Mindshare.